Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast. I'm Matt, and tonight's special guest, we got Mike Wheeler. What's going on, man?
Another day.
Yes, sir. So, what originally, we all have that origin story. What originally got you into cars?
Oh, boy. Probably my dad's 55 Chevy pickup. He had a big window, wraparound back window, 55. And, he was building in my childhood, never got finished. And my grandma's dad used to own a little gas station mechanic shop in the middle of nowhere. And he actually took, old Model A's and souped them up, and they were on a 2-lane blacktop highway. No other business, literally in the middle of nowhere by themselves. And, that kind of became the drag strip of the area. And, I never got to meet the guy, but obviously listening to the stories, as I got older, that's all I asked about, and especially anytime I met somebody that knew him that I haven't talked to yet, it was forget whatever I was doing. I was sitting there listening to this guy. And my grandma actually had his old Model A that, sat in the corner of the garage with junk all over it. It was, you could barely even see what it was. You couldn't tell it was a Model A at all unless somebody told you what it was. But, growing up, that was kind of incentive that was supposed to be my graduation present. Long story short, I don't have it, but it's probably a good thing, so I probably would cut it up. But my little cousin has it. And before my grandpa died, he decided to restore it, and they took it all back to original, and still has the crank on it. I'm surprised that he attempted to take it back original. It wasn't in the shape to do that. But, with all the third-party companies now that repop all the fenders and, the firewalls and the dashes, and it's easier to do that now. So anyways, yeah, he took it back to original. But those two cars are basically what got me into motorsports in general. And then, living in Florida, where I lived, you could almost set your watch 3:30. It would rain until about 3:45, 4 o'clock.
Yep. And
sun was back out. You're good. So I had a motorcycle. I think I had like 3 cars the entire time I lived there, and the rest were motorcycles. And so tearing those apart and rebuilding them, and that was kind of my love, and that was in the era of Jesse James and West Coast choppers, and right about that same time, Orange County choppers started, but Jesse James has always been my idol, I guess, if you will. I like that he builds everything by hand. He doesn't buy shit. He takes sheet metal and tubing and whatever the goal is, and he cuts it up, bends it, heats it up, welds it, whatever, to get what he's getting. And hey, I've always admired that. I wish I had the tools that he has, but I make do with mine. And when I get to a part that I need a special tool for, I make it. I've got hundreds of tools around my shop that I made by hand, looking at pictures on Google and pausing YouTube videos while they're, just so I can see exactly how this section of it works. And, my bead roller, for example, it was either buy a $2,000 bead roller and then another $1,000 worth of dies, or I make my own, and that's what I ended up doing. But anyways, yeah, so watching those guys growing up, kind of been all I really cared about as far as, TV goes, and really didn't do anything else. I still don't. I do construction for, half of my income. Uh, Fortunately, I'm getting close where I don't have to do that anymore. You know, I don't really have to leave my garage, which has always been my goal.
That's a dream.
Again, I wish I had a few more tools, and you know, I plan on it. I've been kind of scoping some things out, and they're all old, you know, Polmax and um, Ironman, and those are two that I would like to get, and a little mini lathe. But finding room for it's the hard part. You know, if I had an extra stall and a half or two where I could fit some stuff comfortably, you know, I'd probably hustle for those tools a little harder, but I know that I just don't have the room for them. So,
and it doesn't matter.
I find other ways to make it.
It doesn't matter how big the garage is; you'll fill it.
Right. So that's what everybody keeps telling me. You know, they're just, if you were ever here at my shop, you'd understand. Like, I take advantage of every square inch.
Yeah.
And then, you know, yeah, stuff still. I got a big, nice welding table that is full of crap. You know, I mean, it's not junk, but instead of, I need to get in the habit of, what's that saying? When you're done with it, put it away, don't set it down. And, you know, I'm horrible about that. Instead of putting my die grinder away, I'll set it on the bench because I know I'm getting ready to need it again.
Yeah.
But same distance to my drawer that I keep it in versus the bench, you know, and then 1,000 other things gets piled on top of that. But so yeah, I mean that's kind of what kicked everything off, and that's my world, my life. That's all I talk about. You know, anything I do outside of the house is motorcycle or car related. You know, my wife would appreciate a date every once in a while, I'm sure, that wasn't a car show or something of that nature. But trying to get better at that anyways. We'll see.
Yeah, we had to have a conversation last year right around Turkey Rod Run. We had, you know, it was our first time putting on the hangout last year, or the beginning of this year, but getting prepared for it last year. And, you know, you get down to the end and, you know, this is the first time I ever put on a car show. So I just thought, like, you call somebody up and go, hey, I want to have a car show. And they go, cool. And you advertise it and people show up and everything's good. So we were getting down to the end of it. And I'm like, we've put a lot of money out. Like, we need to promote the shit out of this car show. Cause like, we got a big old nut to get off of before. And so we had went to 22 shows in 8 weeks. And right before Turkey Rod Run, my wife was like, I don't really want to go to Turkey. And I was like, no, that's not really an option. You know, that's kind of the one show that, like, I absolutely needed you at. And, you know, she's like, well, I'm tired. And I'm like, I get that. So we did Turkey, because the whole reason that we do the podcast is to kind of expand the opportunities that we have. You know, like I was telling you before, the road trip to California, that was nowhere in my fathom. You know, obviously I would love to get out to the West Coast and go see some of that car culture. They definitely know how to car show way better than we do. But, you know, I'm like, again, just like the Cadillac. Oh, I'll get there eventually. And, you know, I didn't even know that trip. I didn't even know it was coming. You know, shout out to Bad Idea Customs, Ken Sainer. He called me. He's like, hey, what are you doing from this day to this day? And I was like, working. And he's like, well, can you get off? And I'm like, I might. What? Why? He's like, well, can you be at the Orlando airport at this time? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Well, you tell Ashley she needs to pick you back up at the from the Orlando airport at this time 10 days later. And I was like, what? He's like, you're flying to Montana. We're going on a road trip. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And, you know, it was awesome. Both shows that we got to go to, and just getting out and driving old shit and vintage campers and all that cool stuff, you know. And you have to kind of take a step back every once in a while and be like, I do this because I enjoy it, not because it's supposed to be a job. All right. So, So she's like, I don't really want to do this. And I'm like, okay, let's do turkey like we do always, like we used to do it. Let's go. And if we want to go to this, we'll go to this. If we want to go to dinner, we'll just go get dinner. Doesn't have to be road gas station hot dogs for every meal.
Right.
But
yeah.
But I'm in the same boat. Everything that I do is surrounded, some sort of way by cars. Even at work, I spend a lot of time in the Villages, one of the largest, if not the largest retirement community. And they have really cool fucking cars tucked in their garages.
Oh yeah.
And you see one and you're like, "Oh, tell me about it."
Yeah. My conversation that I have is how much does it take for me to take it home with me?
Yeah, see, I don't have. I'm fortunate that I don't have room.
Yeah, same. Problem is, I got a couple buddies that have like big farms. And I haven't taken them up on it yet, but the option's there. So when those deals come across, I'm not going to sleep on it.
Yeah.
I got a little 30 Chevy pickup that I scored a couple hours away from home. I went up there I think he had 2 radiator grills listed, and I saw the rest of it in the background of the pictures, and the story was his dad died, and they were selling all of his stuff off as an estate sale or whatever. And well, I went through their Facebook marketplace listings and didn't see the truck anywhere on there. They had 100 other things, but they didn't have the truck. They had some parts to it, but not the cab itself. And so I like I said, it was about a 2-hour ride. I went up there on the off chance. I took my trailer, for 2 grill shells, but started talking to the guy, and he just hadn't gotten around to listing it yet, but that was the plan. And I ended up scoring it really cheap, and about it. The parts that I've sold off of it alone that I knew I'd never use, I've not only made the money back that I spent on it, but, and then some. Plus, I got some cool parts from it that I believe he said the truck was taken apart in 48, and it's been inside of a climate-controlled building ever since then. As far as climate control, it had concrete on it.
Yeah.
But so there's no rust on it at all. And Chevy, their wood's been until 35 or 36, I think. But it's it's the brother to the Hellcat. So the plan was to build something that kind of a his and hers that she could drive. She likes driving the Hellcat, and she does a good job at driving the Hellcat. So I'm okay with that. So I was going to build a little, just nasty little truck that kind of matches it, for his and hers. And,
is she short?
But
is she a short?
No, I mean she's 5'9", I think.
Ooh,
yeah,
buddy.
She's not short at all.
That's a lot to fit in a 30 cab.
Believe it or not, there's.
Well, it is a Chevy. Yeah.
I would, I was going to build the truck for myself. That way she could drive the cab, and we could take both of them around. But yeah, as far as room goes, if I had more, I'd have. Matter of fact, a buddy of mine was a listing like 4 days ago of the storage container, and like a Connex like semi trailer. Ended up having 3 Model A bodies in it. I think there was an extra cowl in there. Or no, excuse me, there's 3 extra cowls in there. So it was a total of 6 cowls, that were on the other bodies too. But I was supposed to go meet the guy the next morning, but my buddy that sent me the link for it had already messaged him and set up a time. He was planning on meeting the guy at 8 o'clock. I messaged the guy while I was on the phone with him, when he first sent it to me. And he wanted me to be there at 9. So he was going to see my buddy at 8, and I was going to be there at 9. And then there was another guy that was coming at 10, and so on. And basically whoever bought it, he'd let everybody else know. Well, sure as shit, I was getting in the car, getting ready to leave to go over there. And he sends me a message saying that the first guy bought it all. So I don't have room for 3 Model A bodies by no means. So it worked out because they ended up paying $400 for the whole thing. There was I know one chassis for sure, and then three bodies, and I think they were missing a door. But other than that, there was three full cars there basically, and then three more cows that you could build off of. So yeah, it's a good thing I don't have the room because what is that, Sanderson, whatever that old junkyard TV show was. That would definitely be my property, I'm sure. But
I currently have a crusty 70 C10 that you have to lift up on the door to close it because the cab is so rotted that it just bows out whenever you open the door. That's not mine, and it was an accidental purchase. And like I said, the Model A, the Cadillac, and the 54, and it's like I'm running out of room because we sold, and the plan was to get more land, more shop, and less mortgage, and I got less land, no shop, and twice the mortgage. So we did it like everything backwards. So we just put up a little carport in the front yard because my wife was like, well, this is a temporary house. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, so do you think that anyone besides you would want a 30 by 40 shop in the backyard? And I was like, probably not. Like the yard kind of doesn't dictate that. And she's like, and the septic's back there. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, so eventually you're going to like get excited and try to leave, and you're going to cut that corner, and we're going to end up buying a drain field. She's like, why don't we put something in the front yard? And I was like, a shop in the front yard sounds way better. And she's like, well, no, we'll do concrete. And that way, when we sell it, there's now 2 concreted parking spots right by the front door. And I'm like, that's why I married you, because you're the smart one. I was just thinking like I need more shop space. So, and then we ended up having to do a drain field, and it would have been right where the shop would have been is where they put the new drain field. So I'm like, God, you really are. You're on top of it. So the Hellcat, you're one of the only ones that kind of is on the same wavelength as me of doing something a little weird. So what made you go 4-door?
Nobody else does. As the main, everybody shies towards the 2-doors, and I love the 2-doors too, but the way that everybody does their step up Z's in the back, you lose literally half the car, and you got a seat basically sitting on the Z of the rear section of the frame, so there's no room in there. Putting a clutch pedal in there's damn near out of the question, so it's got to be an automatic. There's so many things that you can't do with a 2-door, and that, and I got the body, well, the whole car, it was taken apart. It was in a bunch of trash cans, believe it or not. But I got it for a really good deal, and shortly after, it was still all sitting on the trailer when they even announced that they were going to do a build off. So I was like, well, you know what? This is perfect timing. And, so that was that. And the next thing was just to see if I could make it like a true 4-door, like an operating 4-door.
I was going to say,
you could actually
you were actually going
seat 4 people.
You were actually going one more step ahead of me because I welded my back door shut.
Yeah, no, see, mine are operational, and I can fit 4 grown adults in there. 2 in the back, 2 up front. I got found some sliders on Amazon, some seat sliders, and I made the seats. And essentially, the front seats are on the rails, so they're adjustable. You can slide them up and down or back and forth. And then, as far as the rear seats go, they're actually built into the chassis. So you're sitting on part of the chassis, which is actually where my part of my floor link ties into.
Okay.
Just the way that I did it. I got the floor link tied underneath of it, and then on top of it is essentially where you're sitting. And there's a bunch of safety structure underneath of it to prevent anything from, drag shaft brakes or something. It's not going to come up underneath somebody. But yeah, you can fit 4 grown adults in there pretty comfortably, honestly. which I've only seen one other four door that was actually finished and laid on the ground, and that's Jeff Jones
Yes.
out in California. And I believe he called it like the penny or something penny, because it's mostly copper. You know, all the inside panels are copper trimmed out. And, he's got 4 seats in it. And again, it lays on the ground. Well, anybody knows that when a car lays on the ground, usually the trans tunnel is, you know, at your head when you're sitting in there for the drive shaft, you know, because the rear end gasket, it doesn't move, you know.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, the first time I seen his four door, I knew something was off, but I wasn't really thinking about it that hard at the time, so I really didn't think that far into it. But come to find out, it doesn't have a drive shaft. It only goes to shows when it gets trailer deletion.
Oh.
And so that kind of stepped up at one more notch that, okay, now I want to make one that is functional, drives, lays on the ground, and can fit 4 people in. So
yeah,
basically
my transmission was built above the chassis, so basically the whole transmission was in the car with you, but I only had 2 seats. I just was sitting in the back seat.
Which that's kind of the general configuration, is the seats are actually part of the rear section of the body. And again, it's you know, there's only so many, in theory, there's only so many combinations you can do with them, you know. And so you know, again, I wanted kind of a side bet with myself, see if I could, you know. And if I couldn't, you know, worst case scenario, I put the seats in the back, I weld the back door shut, and, you know, do the same old deal. But, you know, I fought pretty hard. I think I built 3 different chassis to try to make it work, you know. And it's kind of if you were to look at the chassis, it all makes sense once you see it, but getting it to that point is kind of a no shit moment once it finally comes together. Like, you know, it's so obvious, but nobody ever does it. And, you know, especially since I have my rear bags are over my axle, you know, and that's another big thing that, you know, like Josh Joyce, his airbag stuff is on the chassis, so that the body lays on the ground flat, you know, and it rides better when they're not over the axle and all that. So that's about the only thing that I regret, that I wish I would have done differently. But it probably worked out, because I wouldn't have been able to make it work if the bags weren't over the axle. So, that was pretty much the whole reason behind the 4-door.
Yeah. So
that, and then the taxi part of it was, so I was originally going to do like a race car theme. Matter of fact, I had numbers on it at one time that I pinstriped on there. And halfway through the build, a buddy of mine come by that I actually sold the chassis to the 30, which, you know, I became friends with him off of Marketplace. He came to look at the chassis, ended up buying it, and then now we're pretty good friends, honestly. But some old timer lives about half hour outside of town, and he comes by, and he's got a bunch of cool stuff. But he's kind of, I don't know, he's in his late 60s probably. It's a millwork or millwright guy, so he ran a lathe most of his life and did CNC stuff. And kind of a computer nerd in a sense, but we have the same taste, you know, all the cool stuff that I think is cool, so does he, you know. So anyways, he brings me this, I think it was a set of headlights originally. And then he's like, oh, well, check this out too. And it's a early 70s taximeter with the speedometer that ties to the meter. So it's fully operational, where, you know, you can flip the thing and it'll tell you the mileage, and it'll add up on the taximeter. And it's all mechanical too, you know, from the 70s. So it was really cool. And, you know, he made a comment. He's like, well, I thought of you, since the Chevy's a 4-door. It'd be cool to turn it into a cab. And So, I mean, I give him all the credit for it. He's the one that started the whole deal. But, you know, he said it as a joke, but it made perfect sense. Why not? You know, so, you know, I still get shit for it being painted, you know, a fake patina, but it is what it is. You know, they didn't have a yellow taxi cab in 1930. You know, it didn't have, they were black.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, but yeah, that's kind of the story at the start of it.
That's very cool. I didn't, so it's a Chevy, not a Ford.
Correct.
Okay.
So another
little weird.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, the Chevys were, you know, they're body by Fisher cars.
Yeah.
Like the early Chryslers. There's a few of them that were. I think Pontiac was body by Fishers. But anyways, so yeah, they were basically constructed out of wood, nice wood too, man. The people that built them back then, the way that they, you know, part of it's tongue and groove, part of it's pinned together with dowels. And you start, if you ever come across an old Chevy that has wood interior, take time to check it out, kind of look at what it is. It's not wood accents. That's the frame of the body.
And that's the 29, my Model A. I was absolutely shocked when I started, and it was, you know, looking at the car, I bought it as a complete car. And it didn't look like, I was like, oh, there's not much rust. There's not, you know, this is a good candidate for kind of what I'm trying to do, bare metal hot rod. And once I started taking the interior out and I got the fenders off, I was like, oh, there's the rust. We found the rust. And then you start taking wood out and you're like, I'm running out of body. Like the wood is, and as you take wood out, the body's starting to like get more movable. And I'm like, there should probably be some bracing in here before the rest of this comes out. And you know, but that's whole...
The Chevys, let's take my car for example, it being four-door. The rockers bolt in, the B pillars bolt in. Like the only thing that's really one piece is the cowl, the two front windshield pillars, and then on which I personally like, but Chevy on the top of the body, you know, like a Ford Model A, there's actually two pieces. The car is actually sectioned in two spots, and they marry them together. So they basically use the four-door and the two-door at the same parts. So if next time you see a Model A, like right above the B pillar, whether it's two-door or four-door, you'll see a seam on top right there. And you know, that's where they fit them together so they don't have to make any extra molds.
I know in 29,
on the Chevy, it's all one.
In 29, it wasn't a Ford body. My Model A, my 29 went all the way from, it was a one piece from back to front. It didn't section at all. The B pillars bolted in to wood.
Is that Ford?
Mm-hmm. It was a 29.
Yeah, I guess 29, I'm not real familiar. I've never owned a 29, but there's a 30 sitting. I'm looking at it right now.
That was the one, because that was the one thing when everything happened and I got it back here, I ended up cutting the roof out of it and trying to make what was there work. And I wish I could have found replacement sail panels. And I could find two doors, but I couldn't find four doors. And the two doors like 2 inches shorter. And I'm like, well, I need it to be like 3 inches longer than what a two door is to make it, because I was a little bit long. Because what happened was it wasn't braced. The floor got cut out, so it tacoed.
Yeah.
And then with trying to weld the doors and stuff back together, it didn't work out the best. And then I tried after the fact to try to get it square again, and it was horrible. When we eventually got it, but it was like fingers crossed that it stays there while I can get a floor mounted in it, and it's garbage. There was a lot of wood, and like I said, everything was wood. And I was absolutely like, I called, I got a good buddy, he's a real traditional guy. And I was like, dude, there's like, I don't know if they replaced it with wood. He goes, no. He goes, the Ford bodies, the four doors specifically, were never built by Ford. They were built by Murray or Briggs. And they were actually coach builders.
No, right. Which that's the same as, oh wow, I can't, it's spaced out their name, but Ford bought their molds. I thought it was like 27, 28, so it could have been 29. Because I know 30 for sure. I think Ford bought their molds back, and it was when they started producing them all in house.
So also another difference in the 29, and it's the only one, is it had an integral fuel tank. So how all Model A's, you run the 3 bolts out, and you take the fuel tank off, and then you can see all that. No, I had to beat my fuel tank out the bottom, and because there was nothing. Because I'd called Zach Parks, Wired Customs, and I was like, hey, I'm not seeing where this cowl comes apart. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, the fuel tank. And he's like, well, keep grinding. I'm like, dude, I'm the bare metal. There's nothing here. And he's like, it's got to bolt in. And then I sent him, he's like, send me another picture of the windows. And I sent him a picture, and he was like, oh, no. He's like, cut a square out around the fuel tank and take it out. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, you got to take it out through the car. And I'm like, well, I don't have the rest of the interior. He goes, take the rest of the interior out and then cut it out. And I was like, okay. And then after the fact, I was like, damn, I should have just used the fuel tank. That would have been way simpler than what. But so I know you got a couple cars, couple bikes still running around. What is currently your favorite car or bike?
I mean, the Hellcat. Not for reasons most people would think. It's just it's a comfortable car to drive, and it's a driver. It's got a rack and pinion on it, so I don't have to stand on the steering wheel to back out of my driveway. It fits me perfectly. It's a fun car to drive, and naturally working on sealing up some of so on my trans tunnel I made my own shifter, and it's got essentially a drag link going up to the transmission. Well, instead of trying to notch a section for the steering, the pitman arm to move back and forth on the trans, I left it all wide open from basically where the bell housing kind of comes back to the tail, where it kind of starts squaring up right there. So from there to the front and the floor, it almost looks like it was CNC'd or a computer made it, but it's such a tight tolerance around the transmission pan that you can't see daylight through it. Like, it'll move when you step on the gas and engine rocks.
Yeah.
That's when you'll see the gap. But when you're just cruising or at a stop or an idle or whatever, you're gonna see daylight. So, anyways, I bought this. It's like a 3M. I actually got a couple different sizes of it, but this stuff here, it's weather stripping. That you put on like the edges of the doors. So I got a couple different sizes of it that I'm gonna attempt to put on the inside. You're not gonna really be able to see it, but I want to put it on as nice as possible. So I'm going to get under there with some brake clean and get any grease and oil off there, and basically glue it to the inside of the body just to cover up any holes. But my plan is if there's not snow on the ground, I drive it. And it's been like that since it's been built. Like, everybody makes fun of me. We generally have a club meeting for our car club once a month, just to get together, and bullshit. And last year it had snowed a couple of days prior, and the snow just happened to melt enough where I drove to the meeting. It was colder than shit. I didn't have windows in it. I had a windshield, but there's no side windows.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I ended up getting some Lexan, and I cut some windows and essentially screwed it to the wood from the inside, and so aside from having a heater, I'm hoping this weather stripping seals up, because with the transmission being open, and it's just that little section where the shift linkage is that's open, but just that little bit that's open, it puts more heat into the cab than you would think. It's almost a little heater on its own. So it works out. And I got a couple of cool old school, like original heater cores that one I got with this little 30 Chevy pickup that, it looks like it's a new old jet repop. It's like brand new. And with the taxi meter inside of there, it kind of takes up. You don't really have room to put the heater because they're pretty chunky by themselves, and I just don't know where to put it. But I'd like to put a heater in it because if there's not snow on the ground. Matter of fact, I actually traded a buddy some work. I made him some interior panels for a set of steel wheels that I think are off of his square body or something that has like 33s on it or something. They're like regular radials. They're not like dirt tires, but I was thinking about swapping them out this year and running them instead of the slicks and seeing if I can run it in the snow. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That's awesome.
We'll give it a try. We got a picture last year with the slicks on it. I backed it out and I cut the rear street of my house. There's main streets on either side of our property. So we're the only house right here. And on the back side, it kind of is on a little bit of a hill. And I ended up backing up and backed up as far as I could until I started spinning. And I just kind of parked it there. It was right around Christmas. All the Christmas lights were up. And I got a couple pictures of it. It was snowing, so you can see that in the picture too. And I had hell getting it back down that little bit of a hill and into the driveway. It took me a few tries. But yeah, I mean, I would like to this year, as long as there's not a foot of snow on the ground, I think I can run that thing. We're going to try it, see what happens. It's got full coverage insurance on it, so whatever.
Hey, you built it to drive it, man.
They switched their insurance. Haggerty switched their insurance now where I think I paid an extra $40 for the whole year that they'll not only give you the full payout, but you get to keep the car. You don't have to buy it back from them.
Yep.
So we're going to see what happens. I'm going to try to drive that thing all the way along.
Yeah, when we first bought the 54, I just called and I was like, I got all of our coverage is under one. So I was just like, I'll just call them, get insurance on it. No big deal. So I could go get a tag on it. And, best laid plans. I was like, I'll call later and get it switched over to like a Haggerty or Grundy or somebody else. Never did. And I was like, my mom and dad they bought a little 34 Ford pickup, and they're like, yeah, we called so-and-so and it's like $150 a year. And I was like, what? I'm like, I pay that like every 6 months for this car. What the crap? So then I called and I'm like, oh dude, I'm getting screwed. So then the same when I put the Model A on, it went down again. It did. And I'm like, oh man. And that was the one thing the lady said. She's like, cause I called and I was like, well, maybe their insurance is different. So I called and I was like, hey, I had my wife call and she's like, hey, I'm just checking coverage, comparing coverage. And, is this full coverage on the 54? And she's like, no, sweetheart. If it burns to the ground, you own the ashes. And I was like, oh, what? No. And then called, I think it was Haggard. I don't know. But she called somebody else and they're like, no, if it gets totaled, you get the totaled piece and we pay for it. I was like, and it was significantly cheaper. I'm like, that's the way to go right there.
Oh yeah. I think I paid $400 for a full year, full coverage with $30,000 insurance.
Yeah.
Because anything over 30, they want to come out and inspect it and put eyes on it. And I kind of bullshitted them a little bit on, that it had the original engine in it, this and that. If they actually saw it, I'd probably pay a little more than what I am. But yeah, I don't know how that works.
Well, that was when we just had the 54 on it. They never asked for pictures because it's supposed to be in like a garage, and we just always said, oh yeah, it parks in the shop. Well, the shop is a carport. So I was like, all right, well, then when we got the Cadillac,
they're white ones. Yeah,
they never said anything with the Model A. The Model A, they never said nothing. I get the Cadillac, and they're like, okay, you got to send us a picture with both cars in the garage. And I'm like, shit. So, like, we put them up in the carport, took a picture, and she's like, I was like, do they know it's a carport? And Ashley's like, well, I just said shop. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. And they took it. They're like, oh, we can't. They bucked us on something. And it was like, I think if something happens here, I think I got to go homeowners instead of car. And I was like, okay.
All right, that makes sense.
I'm like, because it's not.
You should take out their buddies. Pulled into a car wash or something.
Well, and that's so. My mom and dad, that's whenever they bought their truck, they took pictures of the guy before they took it home. And I'm like, and they just bought a clean 65 Fairlane. And the guy had pictures, so they just took pictures. I was like, oh, that's cool. But so we had Jeremiah on last week. Are you trying to throw your hat in the ring for the high class trash invitational?
Yeah. I sure am. I think I was actually probably the first one that sent him a video. I like Jeremiah. He's a good dude. And we kind of thought the same way about the last build off, and kind of on the same page of what it should be. And you know, if I were to put it on, I'd put it on the exact same way he's trying to. So yeah, man, like I said before, the build off wasn't about winning; it was about being part of it. You know, and you know, trophies cool. You know, they're kind of a pain in the ass. They take up a lot of room, to be honest with you. I run out of shelf space that I have a bunch of tools that could go in the place of those things. I appreciate them, but yeah, the trophy's not what it's about at all. You know, I make all my friends through, you know, a car show or the build off, and yeah, I for sure want to do it. Mainly, but you know, again, because I think he's talking about having it in Mississippi, which you know that's cool too. I'm up in Iowa now, so going back down south would be fun. You know, my wife, she's from Arizona, and she'd have a blast down there. So
how did y'all end up? How did y'all end up in Iowa? If you come from Florida and she come from Arizona, that's the opposite of both of those states.
I know, right? So she came up here. She was having some issues, just with bad influences, and her family is originally from Iowa. Her dad, well, I guess both dad and mom are from here, but he's a Mason. He ended up moving out to Arizona when she was little, and so anyway, so she got family here, and she came up here. She pretty sure she was only going to be here for like 6 months, and ended up liking it. So I think she was here a month before I got here, and I was actually getting ready to move to London. I used to be a tattoo artist. That's what I did the first 15 years of my life. Was in a shop, and I was a professional tattoo artist. Well, my little brother, we have different dads, and his dad's from up here. So the shop that I was working at in Fort Myers, we kind of started the conversation. Well, then I moved up to Dothan, Alabama, and I was the head artist at that shop. Well, that's about the time that I talked. No, excuse me. I was in Lynn Haven, right outside of Panama City, when I talked my brother into coming down, and which is like 45 minutes from Dothan. It's just over Panama City. You know where that's at. Lynn Haven is kind of a suburb of Panama City. It's literally across the street. You're in this different town. But they're talking about my brother into moving up there or down there. And he'd always wanted to be a piercer. That was like his whole, he talked about it when he was little. For whatever reason, that was like his aspiration, was to become a piercer. So the whole time I was tattooing, I tried talking him into coming down, and I get him into the shop one way or another, and half of it's showing up, so if you're there for enough time, eventually you're going to be able to throw your hat in there. But so anyways, we ended up moving up to Dothan and got him in there, and blah blah blah. Years pass, and life just worked out where didn't really have anything hold me right there. So I was going to go way outside the box and leave the country. So I ended up, I left a lot of stuff down there and just kind of packed enough bags that I could carry on the plane because Des Moines has an international airport. I was going to fly out of here. And then my little brother, the main reason is because, my little brother had enough stuff that he needed a big U-Haul. Plus, he had his car, so he had to pull a trailer with the car on it behind this U-Haul. My brother, he likes cars, but he's not that inclined when it comes to stuff like that. So he was scared to drive, especially 18 hours. So I was like, well, I'll go up there with you, and I'll find out from up there. So ended up, when we got here, we unhooked the car trailer, but we still left the car, which was dumb. I don't know why we ever did that. We left the car on the trailer and drove the U-Haul around instead. I think it was mainly because we didn't want to leave all of our stuff sitting somewhere. But went to a couple shops. We found a shop that he liked, and started hanging out with those guys for a couple of days, and then ended up meeting her in the bar and ended up staying. And now I got an 11-year-old boy and a house, and yeah, so kind of how that worked out.
Well, we met during COVID over toilet paper, so.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't watch news at all. So like, if it doesn't pop up when she first opens Facebook, or I tell her, she's completely oblivious. Yeah. So she was a salon manager at the time, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, Fridays, we're closing for like 2 or 3 weeks." And she's like, "For what?" And they're like, "The pandemic." And she's like, "The what?" Like, the global pandemic? And she's like, "Oh, I don't know." And so we started talking while she was off, and I was like, "Yo, come up for dinner, and I'll make you dinner." And she bucked me on it, and finally it was like, it was late, and she's like, I really need to find toilet paper. Well, I'm a single dude in my own house. Like, I got all the toilet paper. So I sent her a picture of like this Taj Mahal of toilet paper. I'm like, "I got you covered. Come on." So she come up, and she was off. I was still working. So like the first day I was like, "All right, you got to go home." And then probably about lunchtime, I'm like, "Hey, you want to come back for dinner? I still owe you that dinner." And she's like, "Yeah, okay." Next morning, I'm like, "You ain't got to go. Like, you just hang out. I'll be back at 5. And then like, I come home and there's a hot meal on the table, and I'm like, I kind of get used to that again. That was nice. And she's like, "Do you mind if I clean your house? It's kind of filthy." And I'm like, "Well, I'm a dude, so yeah, I mean, it probably is disgusting." She's like, "Well, I just didn't want to offend you." I'm like, "No, clean my house." So she cleaned my house and made me dinner the next night, and I'm like, "All right." And she's never left. So, yeah. And, the garage stuff, she'd always been interested in cars, but she never, her dad wouldn't let her in the shop. That's not where girls belong. And, during that time, my headspace was a little wonky. So the garage was kind of my soundboard. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go hang out in the garage." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "You can come." And she's like, "Okay." So come out, and she's like, "I've never been allowed." And I'm like, "No, your hands are way smaller than mine. They can fit more places. Come on, you're hired. Let's do this." We did a road glide swap on my bagger. And she sat with a Harley Bible telling me what wires needed to get extended and which wires needed to get cut and where they needed to go. And, got that finished, and then I was like, all right, and we got married. And actually, when people are listening to this podcast, the day before this comes out is our anniversary. So happy 3 years.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Hello.
So back to car shit. What show or event do you try to make every year?
I mean, definitely that stuck out. Good guys, while it's not really, they don't like me a whole lot there, but I still like going. They used to try to make me park in their own little spot and felt like a black sheep, but now I park next to $200,000 cars, and they get pissed off because there's ass prints all over their stuff, and I love it. Yeah. But yeah, so Good Guys is a pretty important one. And it's 4th of July weekend, and it's a good show, especially here because it's at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, and that's the biggest fairground in the world. I mean, as you can only imagine what Good Guys is like. But yeah, and Radstock is, dude, that was last year was the first time I'd gone, and anybody that's never been, if you don't know shit about cars, still make it a point to go to Radstock. It's so much fun. I've met so many cool people, handful of assholes, but those are far few and in between. I mean, you find assholes at church. I was going to say
you get that anywhere. Every section of the car world has that.
But for the amount of people, and especially not to be judgy, but the cliche of the type of person that is driving these cars, that people think that way anyways.
Yeah. Nicest
fucking people I've ever met, and that's cliche in itself, but it's true, and I've made a lot of friends that I honestly, half of them I couldn't point you out if we were in the same venue, but through Facebook and social media and stuff, and talking through Messenger and all that good stuff, and I know most people by their cars, but yeah, those are the two main ones that I honestly care about. The rest of them, fortunately, my wife, she likes going to it more than I do, so that works out. Yeah. I try getting out of some of them every once in a while just so I could catch up on, if I'm in the middle of what was I doing? Oh, I was putting suicide hinges on this Model A that I'm doing right now, and they're a pain in the ass. That those hinges were meant for like a '70s Chevelle and newer, something that had enough door panel to it that you could hide them in. Well, Model A, there's no door panel. It's just a piece of sheet metal on top of another sheet metal, just enough to cover the lock assembly. But so anyways, I was knee deep in that, trying to make that work and look somewhat presentable, because you can't alter those hinges. They have to be like that. Otherwise, they won't function. So, I was in the middle of that. She's asking me if we're going to the car show tomorrow morning and this and that. I was like, no, I'm in the middle of this. I think I got to figure it out. I'm going to jam it out, so we're just going to skip this one, and she was genuinely bummed out about it. So we ended up going, of course, but so I'm thankful that that's the case. Like, she enjoys it more than I do. Me trying to go to Radstock by myself would be out of the question. It would never happen. We'd probably get a divorce before she would let me go by myself. But that's cool. I'm glad that she enjoys it, and she doesn't come out too often and like help me while I'm making something, mainly because I generally either have the welder or the grinder out, and I don't like sparks getting flown all over me, so I get it, but she's she knows when something happens to one of the cars, like the Hellcat, it's funny, my airbag system it's kind of tied into the accessory, which I should probably fix, but it is what it is. But I have the air compressor on a toggle switch. I don't have that solenoid that trips once it gets to a certain PSI. I don't have one of those anywhere, so I just have it on a toggle switch, and I let it roll until I think the tank's almost full, and then I shut it off. And kind of a guessing game, but you leave that on just long enough, or turn the headlights on, and it'll shut down the whole car. And it's one inline fuse. It's a 40 amp fuse. The first time it happened was a nightmare because, of course, it happened at night when I turned the headlights on. Obviously, I needed the lights, so it was in the middle of the dark, and I don't have a flashlight on me, so I'm upside down in this chopped channeled Model A, trying to find which fuse with my cell phone light, and so once I finally tracked down which fuse it was, and like I said, it's an inline fuse, so I clipped a couple of wire ties and retied it in a different spot where I could almost do it from the driver's seat, because it happens more than I care to admit. I'll generally when you start the car up while it's warming up, I'll flip the switch and let the compressor run too, and generally before I put it in gear, I'll flip that switch. Well, I forgot to shut the garage door or something, so I jump out and do whatever, and I get back in. Well, I forgot that I hadn't switched that off yet, so we'll get 2 blocks down the road in the middle of a 4-lane highway, and the whole fucking thing shuts down. And so it's a kind of a panic to hurry up and swap it out real quick. But anyway, she knows when little things like that happen, she knows what's going on, and what caused it to happen, which I'm pretty proud of her for that she's actually paying attention to stuff like that. And, now she catches it where, it's kind of annoying, but she'll constantly ask me, did you get this? Did you get that?
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, because there's been several times where I forgot, and thank God she said something, I heard it, shut it off or whatever. But yeah, it's cool having her around and wanting to go to this stuff, so it works out.
Yeah, we figured out that Ashley.
When I got to buy a car part.
Yeah, Ashley doesn't. We figured out that Ashley doesn't like the fabrication side. She doesn't. She doesn't want to have to figure out how to build it. She doesn't want to have to figure out how to make it work. Like maintenance stuff, spark plugs, oil changes, installing stuff. She's all for it, but like, hey, I have to figure out how to make this bracket go over there and mount that there. She's like, okay, right, I'll be over here. Like, she doesn't, and she'll play. I was doing something, and I had the welder out, and there was 2 pieces of scrap metal there, and I seen her hunting it a little bit, and I was like, put the mask on, weld it together. What's the worst that's going to happen? She's like, I don't know how to do it. So I kind of gave her the quick down and dirty version, and I'm like, you're hired. You weld better than I do. And it was just because she didn't know what she was doing. So she was being, at the time I was frustrated. So literally all my welds showed it. She actually took her time and actually did what I told her to do. And I'm like, oh, that's a very pretty weld. Good job.
Right.
And she's power tools. She's not a big fan of grinders. She's getting better at it now. I can hand her a grinder and she'll actually go cut something. But it used to be like, no, I'm good. Like, if I can't get it with a hand tool, I don't really want to mess with it. But so you learn. But it is always easier when your significant other is kind of in it too.
For sure.
And you don't have to worry about them selling your car for $10, what you told them it actually costs.
Well, that's what I mean. Even with car parts, like today, I went up and bought a set of aluminum heads, and she doesn't ask how much, but they're aluminum heads. She's not dumb, and I used to worry that she'd get pissed about it, but now she asks, is it better than what you have? And obviously the answer is always yes. So she's like, okay, get them.
Yeah.
So it works out.
Well, Ashley has Prime, so anything that gets ordered on Amazon goes through her.
Right.
So I just send her text messages like, hey, order this, because you can get it tomorrow. I can't get it till next week. So
Yeah,
So
sure.
is there a show or event that you've never been to that you would like to go to?
Yeah, the Las Vegas something ruckus, Rat City Ruckus.
Rat City Ruckus? Yep.
Yeah, that one for sure. And that one that they just had down in Tennessee. I think it was last weekend. It might have been the weekend before. Oh,
Pigeon Ford Rod
Thomas
Run?
Cooley was there.
Pigeon Ford Rod
Is
Run?
that it? Something Rumble. Yeah, that might be it.
I don't know.
I can't think of it. I know that it was down in Tennessee or Georgia, somewhere down there. Um,
You
I
got
can't
Rumble
think
at
of
the
what it was
ranch, but
called.
that's back in May. That's in Jacksonville.
Yeah, this one happened within the last couple of weeks, but it's a
I've been
pretty big
avoiding car
show
shows
too.
because both of our cars are down right now. So if
All
people
right,
don't like directly call me and go, "Hey, are you going to this?" I don't even pay attention to what's going
right.
on because it just makes me mad that I can't go cruise. Because the whole goal was like, oh, I'll work on the Caddy, the 54 we can cruise for right now, and then once the Caddy gets running and driving, then I can swap the motor into it, and then the 54, and I'm like, and I'd try to diagnose it, and then I just kept looking over, and I'm like, there's a brand new rebuilt small block over there with a mother thumper cam in it. I just got to get a different intake for it because she doesn't want to cut the hood on the 54 to run tunnel ram. So I'm like, I could just throw that in there and it would be way quicker, way simpler. It would give her an automatic, which she can drive the 5-speed, but as long as there's nobody on the road, she could drive it like nobody's business. One time she stalls at a stop sign with somebody behind her and it's all over.
Yeah, that's nerve wracking, man. I remember when I learned how to drive a '91 Camaro. It was E28. It was my first teaching experience, and my dad purposely we pulled into this business on kind of a highway. It wasn't super busy, but it wasn't dead by any means. And it was on just enough of a hill where you had to hold the clutch halfway and you had to feather there
Yeah.
was no brake pedal. You weren't playing with the brake. It was that much of a hill. And on top of that, you sit there long enough and the car pulls up behind you. Fortunately, the first 15 times there was nobody behind me. Well, then all of a sudden the car pulls up. And I remember like it was yesterday too. And he wasn't shy about it. He got on my ass and I had no choice. Figure it out right then and there. And it worked out because, yeah, I let off the brake and hurried up and grabbed the clutch and let it out just in time where I damn near backed into him. But, I pedaled it out, kept it there for a minute. We got out on the highway. So, yeah, I get those nerves. That sucks.
Well, it's a mechanical clutch pedal that drives a hydraulic clutch.
Oh, okay.
So it's already wonky.
Yeah.
But so I took her to a big open parking lot and we did start and stop, shift a second. All right, cool. Hit a back road and she's like, I feel like I'm in the middle of the road. And I'm like, if you come any further my way, we're going to be in the ditch. You're about to run off the road. But she did great. And then I put her in a parking lot. She's fine. The last time we were coming back we used to do a little cruise in for lunch, and I just pulled in. I was like, "Hey, you're driving us home." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's like 2 miles. You're good." And drove around in the parking lot. She did great. Turned out on the road, left the stop sign. The first stop sign, great. Second stop sign, great. Third stop sign, somebody pulled up behind us. And I was like, just same way that you did it. And it's kind of like, it's a flat ground, so you're not easing the clutch pedal to hold you there. But as soon as you start going, you bump the road. So it's like you have to kind of be right. And she stalled it 2 or 3 times, and more cars backed up for it. And finally, I could tell she was nothing good was going to come of it. So I was like, just switch me seats. And as soon as my passenger door opened, it was a lady that was behind us, and she hollered out the window, "You get back in that car, girl. You take as long as you need to." And I was like, see, you're good,
nice.
babe. Like, they weren't mad, but and I
Hey,
get
that's
it.
when you just reach over and you flip that rearview mirror upside down and say, "Don't worry about it."
So, but then also like pulling in somewhere, uh, last year at Turkey, it's at Daytona International Speedway. So I was like, oh, cool. Everybody that we were meeting was right outside the Turn 4 tunnel. So I'm like, well, just drive your car through the tunnel. Well, we pulled up, and the guy's like, does it go up? And I went, nah. This is the height it is. And he's like, you ain't going to make it. And I'm like, what do you mean? I know it's going to scrape. I'm fine with it scraping. It scrapes everything. And he's like, no, you're not going to make it. And I'm like, that's rude. And he's like, so no, I'm not even going to let you try it. He's like, because you're going to get high centered, and then there's going to be no way to get you back out off the lip. And I was like, so now, instead of being like 10 cars in line, I'm at the back of the line coming off of International Speedway to go in the back gate. So by the end of that trip, I had my left leg was like the size of, a bodybuilder, and the car had gotten warm enough that I'm pretty sure I could have just let the clutch out and used only brake pedal, and it probably would have been fine. And it's like, I'm tired of this, so she wants an automatic in it. I happen to have one in there. I'm like, so that'll eventually go in there. But I definitely want to invite you. Our weather.
The Redneck Rumble.
Oh, Redneck Rumble. I should have done that.
Sorry, I just found them.
Yeah. So I'd like to invite you January 3rd. Our weather is going to be better than Iowa weather. Big Daddy Don Garlett's The Hangout 2026. All year's welcome. Car clubs, advertisers build trophies. We do podcast pick, lady owned, lady driven, furthest distance. And we were going to do club participation, but no one is registered under a club name, so I'm not paying to. So we do skateboards. This year, Psycho Fab is going to do a painted skateboard for our podcast pick. And we are doing an auction for Spreading the Love, Mr. Sean Rose Metalworks. He will be on site doing bead rolling demonstrations, so if you want to look at Eastwood bead rolling equipment, come hang out, roll some panels, get some ideas. Dude does crazy shit with a bead roller. But Spreading the Love is saving the tatas, which I agree with. But we're doing an auction for that. So come out, support, and all that good shit. Before we get out of here, though, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give somebody that's trying to get into cars?
Oh, man. No, listen to anybody. If somebody tells you it won't work and you think that it have a chance, don't take their word for it. Try it. Do it 100 different times your way. If you still can't figure it out after the 100th time, then sure, give up. But don't just take somebody at their word, because they just might not have figured it out yet. So that's a big thing that I've kind of struggled with. I've listened to a lot of people tell me, "Oh, you can't do it that way because of this," and I'd sit there and stew on it, and I'm like, well, I don't understand why not, but apparently that you can't, and then it went on like that for years, and then finally I just said, the hell with it, and tried it, and I figured it out right away, so just because somebody tells you that you can't do something, don't let that stop you. But that takes a big blindfold off of things when you don't have any rules. And especially the rat rock community, that's kind of the slogan, is there are no rules. You don't have to have special fender washers like a Camaro does, or a Corvette. If you got an Allen head bolt, a grade 8 mixed nut bolt, whatever, and they're sitting side by side, who cares? Bolt that thing together. Yeah, I mean, that's my big idea of advice, I guess.
So, since you're a rat rod guy, I do have one more question. So,
Sure.
the term rat rod, we all know that it is transformed from the original rat rod.
Yes. Yeah.
And I should have asked Jeremiah
My
this same
take on it.
question, but I'll ask you. You could be the first rat rod guy that I ask. When you say rat rod, are you meaning the original Hot Rod magazine coined term of unfinished but still well built car, or do you support the guys that glue on the aisle 3 of the flea market?
I support everybody, man. I used to be, it's the term rat rod to me, and it's only because that's how I was introduced to it, was essentially a poor man's hot rod. And I think that still stands true to even the guy that, like you said, glue stuff on. Um, or spent 10 grand on his front axle. It doesn't, it's your version of your hot rod. That's, to me, that's what a rat rod is. It's what you like. It's kind of showing your personality. It's showing your creativeness. It's showing you, um, a extension of you, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, the term rat rod has came full circle and didn't really go in the opposite direction, but it kind of did in a sense. And I don't think that a rat rod has to have original patina. I don't think, obviously mine's painted patina. Sure, it had original patina at one time, but I didn't like the color of it, so I changed it. Again, no rules. I think there's kind of a fine line when it comes to years. I don't think that you can really make a rat rod out of I don't know, an 85 square body. I guess in the term or definition, sure, but I still kind of, again, partial to what I was informed on what a rat rod was at that time, which obviously is 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but you start kind of breaking away from the term rat rod after that. But on the other hand, like Gertz, for example, I can't remember what year that car is that he's got that he made for his wife. It's more of a Mad Max type feel to it, which that by itself has kind of intertwined with rat rod also. So, that kind of opened a bigger pool by that happening, whether that was on purpose or by happenstance. But they kind of go hand in hand, and that's where that 85 square body that's got all kinds of crazy shit done to it. It's more of a Mad Max feel to it, but at the same time, that's kind of what a rat rod is. So, yeah, that's my take on it. And again, I support everybody. If you built it, that's kind of my caveat to it, though. If you bought it, mainly because you don't have the shop tools or know-how, but you still want to be a part of it, that's fine. But I would rather hear that you built it, or at least put the motor in it, or did something to it. Whether you bought it that way, go cut it up and do something to it different, just so you could say that you had a hand in it. But that's just me. It doesn't go, across the board. But I would rather see that. But yeah, man, the biggest thing is make it a part of you. Show some love. That way everybody else can see without talking to you, and they kind of tell who you are just by looking at your car.
That was really good definition. Because that's kind of the exact, like, I don't, we always say, like, I don't care what you have. I'll be the same guy to the brand new Corvette guy, new Challenger guy, all the way back to the traditional, again, not my style, but build your car to build to you. You know, if you like muscle cars, build you a muscle car. If you like this or, you know, whatever. And also the built not bought shit, you know, to just pay, to write a check to somebody to build you a car. I would dig it more if you had a hand in it. But some people don't have the skills and they want to enjoy this. And there's so many different ways that you can enjoy the car hobby itself. You know, it's not for me to tell you how you need to enjoy your car. You know, some people trailer their car and drive it around at a show, and that's what makes them happy. Some people aren't happy unless they drive the shit out of it.
I'll give you shit over that one.
You started the story with you trailered Hellcat back home, so...
Well, touche, but I also had a 10-year-old, a dog, and a bunch of shit.
I get it. I get it. I get it. And that's... So, Michelangelo, the 54. It's been all over the state of Florida. I've driven it to Daytona. I've driven it to Jacksonville. We drive it. But I also told you that it was in Airbnb jail because it was on a trailer.
Right.
Because when we go over there, it's 4 days. I have to take the dogs with me.
Right.
I'm not trying to contain a 10-pound Chihuahua and an 80-pound bully in a 54 Chevy as I'm trying to drive down the road with the windows down because it ain't got no AC. So.
Right. Yeah. And you got to drive it once in a while. It can go on a trailer. There's definitely times that it's needed, but when that's all it does is come on and off the trailer, then you're gonna get shit from me.
Well, and
it's
there's
only
also
good fun, but you're still gonna get shit.
And there's also a difference between trailering it. Like if we were gonna come up to, you know, a show in Canada, and I have a limited amount of time, I'm throwing the Cadillac in an enclosed trailer and I'm hooking it to the Dodge and I'm rolling up where I can get halfway up there and tell Ashley, hey, you got the next little run. We're straight on the interstate. I'm going to take a nap. Whereas if you're driving it 400 or 500 miles, you're pulling over for the night. You know, you're not.
And you're running twice as long because you're not being able to do 100 down the entire stretch.
Right. So, and I get it. But then there's also something about something cool, especially if you got like, that's what I like most about Rat Stock or the high class. The build off style, drive your shit at the end of them. That's what I dig about that. Is yes, you know, people, whether they trailer to the meeting point and drive the rest of the way or whatever the case may be, it's more about getting out with your buddies that are in the same struggle. You know, your budget was X, their budget was X. They built what they could build for that price. You built what you could build. And anyone that says that they put a car together and there's no issues with it is an absolute liar. Absolutely. Especially if there's a time frame.
Before we go, so the night before Rat Stock, Casey, my wife, was inside getting all my boys' stuff together, his games, and getting the dogs food and everything else, because, you know, we had planned on, we were there for 3 days, I think. We went down the day before. And so I, in typical guy fashion, didn't even attempt to put the car on a brand new trailer. Trailer I just got is new to me. Never even attempted it. Until about dawn, which at the time I think was like 7:30-ish when it started getting dark. So I was working on it up until the last minute. And I was like, oh, well, I better get it on the trailer and, you know, make sure everything fits, get it tied down. So cause we were leaving at like 5 a.m. We were meeting the rest of the guys and getting on the interstate and going. And kind of ran into a couple of hiccups. And like I said, she was inside, so I was out here by myself. And I had it on the winch and I just had it in neutral, and I'm trying to center it because of the wheels, and
I can guess
uh,
one of the hiccups.
yeah, I got the car up on halfway up onto the trailer and realized I needed to come over like 6 inches. It would have been fine. I should have just left it alone. But so I start letting the winch out. Well, there's a piece of diamond plate that runs across the ass end of the trailer. Well, it caught the flex plate, and before I could even stop the winch, it bent the flex plate up to the oil pan. Mind you, this is like we're leaving in like 6 hours. Well, got pushed back into the garage, and transmission got cut out of it. Like, I did major operations on that thing hours before we left. So I get it back together. I took it around the block once. I shut it off, which was dumb. I should have shut it off in the driveway instead on the other side of the block. But I shut it off and tried restarting it just to make sure that the flex plate was catching the starter. And it kind of grinded a little bit, so I brought it back and I gave it some love with a mallet and didn't try it again. I just put it right on the trailer. And we get there. The morning of the build off, we're out in the hotel and I got the car running. I was taking the little snap cover that I put on top of it. I was taking that off. It was going to be a nice day. We're cruising all day, so I wanted to take the top off. And while the car was warming up, two of my buddies come out of the hotel. They were getting ready to leave. They're kind of walking around, checking the car out. And my buddy Corey kind of does a double take at the throttle linkage. I shit you not. You can ask any one of them. The throttle cable had one thread of the cable left. And I think it was like 7. I think we were supposed to meet at the silo at 8, we think, and then go to drive to Davenport from there. Nobody was open. It's 7 o'clock on Saturday. So, excuse me, it was a Friday night. That was a Friday. But either way, it was 7 o'clock. Nothing was open. Well, our hotel just happened to be behind a Tractor Supply. And but there was no AutoZone, none of that stuff, and they probably wouldn't have a throttle cable that would work anyways. Well, thank God I got a manager. I just sat out in front of the Tractor Supply and just waited. I'm like, I hope they don't take off because we're going to have a driver's meeting, and then you're hauling ass. There was no time to dick around. And if you weren't at the driver's meeting, you were out of the competition. That was it. So thank God some manager comes in and opens up and I didn't catch him walking up to the door, otherwise I would have stopped him. But I realized there was a car parked next to me, and I could see him walking through the store. So I run up and I'm banging on the window, and he's yelling at me through the glass that they're not open in 45 minutes or whatever. I'm like, no, you don't understand, dude. I need you to open the door, please. So I'm like jogging up and down these aisles trying to find something that'll work, and thank God they had a little lawnmower section. And I stole a throttle cable off of a lawnmower and kind of jerry-rigged it, made it work. And that's how I drove the whole way back to Iowa and then back to the silo was with that little jerry-rigged cable. But so, yeah, the last 24 hours was it sucks when you start cutting half the car apart the night before you leave and just rolling the dice if it's going to work or not. But so, yeah. Fun fact.
Well, I don't know about the Chevrolets, but with moving the axle back, you may not have had as big an issue as I had. But on the Model A's, the bottom of the body is way skinnier than the window section. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I run a 4th gen because everyone was like, oh, run a 3rd gen and then you run an 1.5 inch spacer and really low back spacing wheels. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to run a spacer. 4th gen is 3 inches wider. That's your 1.5 inches. It should be good. Mob Steel, send me the shallowest 20 you can. So they sent them. Well, I went to put it on the trailer for the first time. Front end goes on fine. Rear end's hanging off both tires right up the edge. And I'm like, I'm fixing to pop these brand new tires that I ain't even got a mile on them yet. And I'm like, and finally I'm like, go grab me pieces of frame rail, and I'm like making like a step down so it's not riding on just the center. And then I'm like, oh, the fenders hit it.
When we get off of here, I'll text you some pictures. I'll go out right now in the dark and send you some pictures. But I had to do the same thing. I made these like 8-inch on both sides, little extensions that went off the side of the trailer, just right where the rear wheels are. Yeah, they hang off both sides of it. That's funny. Well, I'm not the only one.
That was when I went to go pick up the Cadillac. I knew the car was longer. You know, Cadillac's 20 bumper to bumper. And I'm like, I shouldn't be that bad. I mean, the Model A's rode on that trailer. It's pretty close when you figure out, you know. And so I get it, and I'm like, all right, cool. So we load the car up, and I'm looking, and I'm like, all right, we got to go forward more. And Ashley's like, it's almost to your tailgate. And I was like, okay, we have to back it up some. So all the way home from Tarpon Springs, I got like 4.5 foot of this Cadillac bouncing off the back of a 16-foot trailer, and truck's not happy. The trailer itself pulls amazing. You know, my Dodge doesn't even feel it back there with anything on it. That night, I'm like, the only thing that can make this worse is if it started raining. Oh, it starts pouring. I'm like, this is great. But I had a permanent smile because I would pick the car up. So I was like, you know, here I am, like, and she had dozed off because I got talking car stuff. So now that, you know, what could have been a 30-minute pickup turned into an hour and a half bullshit session. So we're coming back up the interstate, and every little ridge it hits, the trailer's doing and she wakes up and she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, you're all over the road. And I'm like, no, I am where I need to be. The trailer itself is all over the road. And she's like, man, this is ridiculous. And I was like, I know. Got off on I should have just hopped off the interstate, because as soon as I got off the interstate, running 55, 60, it was fine. Trying to run 70, 75, you know, it was not happy. But, well, is there anybody before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to, thank you to, or anything like that?
Aside from my wife for putting up with all my shit, like everybody else is. Not really, man. I just appreciate all the love from everybody, for sure.
Alrighty. And where can everybody find you at?
Facebook. I mean, that's my main deal. Obviously, it's Mike Wheeler. And then I try to do a lot of TikToks too, just short little videos. It's Irish131 is my username. So not really on Instagram. I think I had it tied to my Facebook, but I don't even open up the app, so I couldn't tell you if it was. I think it's posted over there too, but I don't know. Yeah, those are the two main parts that you can find me on.
All right, so we'll put that.
I try to do a video every day of something I'm doing. So.
I need to get better at that. That's the one thing that.
Yeah. Right. It's hard to do.
I go out and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna film, and I forget to move the camera once, and then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna work. Or it's like you get done with something and you're like, that'd have been really good to film. Yeah, but.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me for a little while, man. And I'll put those down in the show notes below. And till next time, guys, get out and drive your shit. Later.
Well, before we end this episode, I just wanted to hop on and say how much we want to thank y'all for listening and give a shout out to our sponsors. A huge thank you to Why Not Fab. Be sure to check out what they're up to on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also wanted to mention Psycho Fab. We are so excited to see what paint job you have in store for the Caddy. You can check out what he's working on Facebook and Instagram. And go check out Throttle Addict for men and women's apparel. Be sure to use the code word HOTROD for 15% off your order. Another thank you to Johnny Jalopy for the logo for The Hangout 2026. Check out his latest sketches on Facebook, johnnyjalopy.com, or find him on YouTube at Johnny Jalopy Art. We also wanted to give a shout out for Mike from Mike Ryu Photography for coming on board with The Hangout 2026. Go take a look at his photography on Facebook and Instagram. And we cannot forget to mention renting for the future, bringing the kids back into shop and bringing generations back together. Check out what they're building on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Till next time, get out and drive your shit. See ya.